Good evening, my friends. This is Sandy Shellis of Environmental Coffee House, and tonight got a topic that I want to talk about that has been on my mind for quite a while, and it's not an easy topic. And we're going to start out with an article, because I do like to read articles and I do like to then discuss them further. First thing I want to tell you is that I got some new lighting finally at the, people have been telling me what to get, what to do. So I've got new lighting and I don't know if this is better, but I think it is. I think you can actually maybe see what I look like, which is pretty cool. And then I want to tell you that I've had a lot of issues the last few days. And I'm not smiling because I'm just, so happy. I'm just smiling because it's natural for me. However, I opened a little space in an antique store in the town I live in. It's a little busy on the weekends. It's a very small town, but people come and they really, they like it. They enjoy coming here. So I dragged a lot of stuff over. Now I've had 3 lower back surgeries and I have multiple neck herniations, and I hurt a lot. But I really wanted to do this. So I brought this stuff over this week. And so if I move around a lot, it's only because I am hurting. So just so be it. Anyway, so I brought all this stuff over to the little antique store and set it all up, and I made a bunch of trips, and suffice it to say, I was in a lot of pain for the last couple of days. But add insult to injury. Today, I was going to the basement to go run downstairs, and not literally run, but to go downstairs to the freezer to get something out of the freezer, and I fell down the steps. But I grabbed onto the banister, and if I didn't grab onto that banister, I would not be here tonight. But I hurt. I think maybe my big toe is broken. I'm looking at it, and I think, I've been using ice all day, so I think we'll be all right to do this. I do. So get started. And you saw the title of it, and the first thing I am going to read is this. It is an obvious truth, which has been taken notice of by many writers, that population must always be kept down to the level of the means of subsistence. But no writer that the author recollects has inquired particularly into the means by which this level is effected. Now, that was Thomas Malthus in 1798 on an essay on the principle of population. Pretty interesting, huh? So population is something that has been talked about for a long time, really long time. And in fact, for me, in high school, it was the time when population was discussed, overpopulation was discussed because of Paul Ehrlich and the book he wrote that was called, if you give me a second, The Population Bomb. Now, I remember this because in high school, we were all told that, let's collect money for UNICEF and we're going to help all the starving children all over the place, all the different countries, Africa, wherever kids were starving. And we did our part. We went out on Halloween and we collected our pennies. And it was a big deal then. It was something that we were taught in school. Now, that was in the 1970s. And he has been definitely somebody that well, was controversial. You know, he was a controversial figure, and he was a Stanford biologist, and he says things like, here's a quote from him: "One of the things that people don't understand is that timing to an ecologist is very, very different from timing to an average person." So, of course, the article that was in Bloomberg, let's see, back in 2015, had asked then the question, why did you write the book? Well, anyway, we're going to go on. Today, I found an article from a news source, and it was in one of my near-term human extinction groups. But the article was posted, and this is what I think, if you can see, return to now. And it's not something I've used before, but I really liked the article. So we're going to go for it, and then we're going to have some discussion on it. Hopefully you'll stick around, and we'll get going. All right. And if I move around, please, just figure that, I hurt, and I'm not going to say, and I'm in pain. Probably everything hurts me, but it doesn't stop me. And again, this has been on my mind for a while, especially since the interview that I did with Hambo and Littletail from Humpty Dumpty Tribe, where he really let us have it. I mean, he did an interview with me for Environmental Coffee House. It was no holds barred. He did not spare us. Okay. And then this week, as a matter of fact, on one of the articles that I posted, someone made a comment about the Progressive Party of the turn of the century, and how this person said that they don't go for the fact that the Progressive Party and the 60,000 sterilizations that they performed. Well, we're not talking eugenics here. We are not talking Nazi Germany type population control here. Nothing like that. Okay. So let's just get started on this right now. So this article is called "Overpopulation is Not a Myth," and no, we cannot all live in the state of Texas. So here we go. Quote, "But every person on the planet could fit inside the state of Texas," unquote. People kept telling me when I argue the earth is overpopulated. I am so confused by the response. Of course, every person on the planet could fit into the state of Texas. So what? A dozen sardines can fit into a can, but guess what? A dozen sardines can't live in a can. Just like 7 billion people can't live in the state of Texas. According to a website called "Overpopulation is a Myth," if you divide the nearly 7.5 trillion square feet in the state of Texas by the global population of 7.4 billion, each person would get 1,012 square feet. Enough for a square, a small townhouse. If we divide Texas's square footage among our predicted 9.7 billion person population in 2050, we'd each get 772 square feet, reducing us each to a studio apartment by their logic. But these calculations are silly and pointless. Even if it were possible to cram 7 billion townhouses or 7 billion studio apartments side by side or stacked on top of each other, where you could put the streets? Where would you put the streets, The sidewalks, the yards, the parks, the grocery stores, the gas stations, the restaurants, the countless other businesses and the farms to feed us all. And the water supplies? According to the Global Footprint Network, the average human requires a hell of a lot more space than 1,000 square feet. In fact, and this is I will tell you who the author is afterwards. In fact, I personally require nearly 18 acres or 780,000 square feet of land to support my lifestyle, which isn't that glamorous by American standards. How do I know? I took this quiz to find out what my personal ecological footprint is. And the quiz has a little, it says, I don't know if you can see it. What is your ecological footprint? Okay, so you go and you take the quiz, and it says many activities impact our footprint. If everyone lived like you, we'd need 4 planet Earths to provide enough resources. So that was one of the answers that the author had gotten. And it showed how her ecological footprint broke down by food, shelter, mobility, goods, services. To support this lifestyle, it takes 17.9 global acres of the Earth's productive area. Energy level, cropland, grazing land, forest land, built-up land, and fishing grounds. And then finally, can you reduce your ecological footprints? Edit your footprint. That's if you want to go back and retake parts of the quiz. Explore scenarios, or continue. Well, she says, if everyone in the world lived like me, we would need 4 planet Earths to sustain our lifestyle. That's slightly better than the 5 planet Earths it would take to sustain 7 billion people living the average American lifestyle. Because lots of people in Asia, Africa, and South America do not live like Americans, thank God. The average American consumes as much as 32 Kenyans. Wow. It would take a mere 1.5 planets to sustain the current human lifestyle. In other words, we're using 1.5 times more resources than the Earth can produce and creating 1.5 times more waste than the Earth can absorb each year. Moderate UN scenarios suggest that if current population and consumption trends continue, by the 2030s, we will need the equivalent of 2 Earths to support us. You might wonder, how is this possible? How are we consuming more than we have? As Annie Leonard explains in her book, The Story of Stuff, which is on my list to read. I haven't read it yet. It's only possible because the planet's been around much longer than we have, and it is a time to accumulate the extra. But the extra, aka fossil fuel, well, it's running out. And we all know that. There's so much on that. So much on that. It's as though a household saved up income for years before ramping up its spending. It could spend more than it earned for some time eating away at the savings, but eventually there's nothing left, Leonard writes. Turning resources into waste faster than the Earth can turn it back into resources puts us in global ecological overshoot. And I don't know if any of you know that term, but that's overshoot occurs when a species temporarily exceeds the long-term carrying capacity of its environment. The consequence of overshoot is a collapse, crash, or die-off in which there is a sharp decline in that species. Interesting, huh? If our problem was to get the human economy down from 150% to 100% of the Earth's carrying capacity, we could do that former Greenspan CEO and Cambridge professor, Paul Gilding, said in a TED Talks presentation a few years ago. The problem is we're just warming up this growth engine. We plan to take this highly stressed economy and then make it twice as big and then 4 times as big in less than 40 years. China plans to be there in 20. The only problem with this is that it's not possible. Now, I'm not going to play it. I wish I could. I didn't set it up yet to do a screenshot, but I will because the software that I have will allow me to do that. So soon enough, we'll be getting there. So people argue, but we need growth. We need it to solve poverty, to develop technology, to keep social stability. Now, I find this argument fascinating, as though we could bend the rules of physics to suit our needs, he says. The earth doesn't care what we need, Gilding continued. Mother Nature does not negotiate. She just sets rules and ascribes consequences, and those are not esoteric limits. This is about food and water, soil, and climate. While overpopulation deniers argue advancements in technology will save us from economic and environmental doom, Gilding says the idea that we can smoothly transition to a highly efficient, solar-powered, knowledge-based economy transformed by science and technology so that 9 billion people can live in 2050 a life of abundance and digital downloads is a delusion. It's a delusion. Infinite possibilities? In a counter TED Talk entitled Abundance is Our Future, billionaire engineer and entrepreneur Peter Diamandis argued the potential for population and economic growth is limitless. Limitless. We might live on a finite planet, but we live in an infinite universe. So he says, I'm not saying we don't have our set of problems, species extinction, water and energy shortage. We surely do. But as humans, we are far better at seeing the problems way in advance. And ultimately, we knock them down. Diamandis calls technology a resource-liberating source. Using robotics, synthetic biology, digital medicine, nanotechnology, and artificial intelligence, he believes we can discover an abundance of resources we previously perceived to be scarce. Wow. Solar energy, for example. We are on a planet that is bathed with 5,000 times more energy than we use in a year every 88 minutes. It's not about scarcity. It's about accessibility, he says. For the first time this year, the cost of solar electricity is 50% that of diesel electricity in India. Wow. An MIT study shows that by the end of this decade, in sunny parts of the U.S., solar electricity will be 6 cents a kilowatt hour compared to 15 cents as a national average. Another example he gave was clean water, which we've all been fighting over, the water protector movement, and all the young people that are working tirelessly and going from camp to camp. Quite amazing what they're doing. He says we live on a planet 70% covered by water. Yes, 97.5% is salt water, 2% is ice, and we fight over 0.5%. Not to worry, Diamandis says. Thanks to nanotechnology, there's a water distillation system in the works. the size of a small refrigerator, capable of generating 1,000 liters of clean drinking water a day from any source. Salt water, polluted water, sewage, at less than 2 cents a liter. The trouble is, the few machines in existence today still cost hundreds of thousands of dollars each. Not chump change. Not chicken change. And what does Rochelle say here? She says some words to really think about. I would say. So, goes into that, the dissolution and the 2 cents a liter, and the trouble about that, you know, the few machines only, the cost prohibitive. Rather than an economic shutdown, we're about to have the biggest economic injection ever, Diamandis concluded. And when humans finally do run out of resources on Earth, no problem. We can just move to another planet. Okay. He had boasted that in another speech. Get real. Gilding says, even if it were realistic that these technologies could be perfected and put into use in the next few decades, it's already too late for them to save us. From deforestation to depleting arable land, to acidifying oceans, disappearing coral reefs, and collapsing fisheries, our ecosystem is already falling apart. By 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. The collapse is well underway. Planet Earth is eating itself alive. We've had 50 years of warnings. We're not even slowing down. It's time we ended our denial. 50 years. Gilding says humans won't act until the crisis hits the economy. And that is actually an interesting point because we are driven by money. Money. Greed. Who are the Koch brothers but the greediest people in the United States? The oligarchs of the right. He says, imagine our economy when the carbon bubble bursts, when the financial markets recognize that to have any hope of preventing the climate from spiraling out of control, the oil and coal industries are finished. Finished. Imagine China and India and Pakistan going to war as climate impacts generate conflict over food and water. Imagine the Middle East without oil income, but with collapsing governments. Imagine our highly stressed agricultural system failing and supermarket shelves emptying. Imagine 30% unemployment in the United States of America. We need to plan our response now. Because if we wait, he says, while the lights are still on, we wait until it takes hold, we may panic and hide. If we feel it now and think it through, we realize we have nothing to fear but fear itself. And I've said that a million times. Fear is big. Fear is there. But that's what we fear is fear. Yes, things will get ugly. And it will happen soon, certainly within our lifetimes. But we are more than capable of getting through everything that's coming. Those people who have faith that humans can solve any problem, that technology is limitless, that markets can be a force for good, are in fact right. The only thing they are missing is that it takes a good crisis to get us going. When we fear, and we feel that fear and loss, we are capable of extraordinary things. Gilding says, if we get this wrong, we could face the end of civilization. But if we get it right, it could be the beginning of a better civilization. Scientists like James Hansen tell us that we may need to eliminate net CO2 emissions from the economy in just a few decades to turn this ship around. While Gilding says it's pretty easy and relatively cheap. Well, not very cheap, but certainly less than the cost of a collapsing civilization. We can transform our economy with proven technology at an affordable cost with existing political structures. The only thing we need to change is how we think and how we feel. Exponential growth. Changing how we think and feel about overpopulation is exactly the topic of this Psychology Today article. All species suffer population collapse or species extinction if they overshoot and degrade the carrying capacity of their ecology, the article says. Humans are no exception. Our human and human-like ancestors lived in balance with their environment for millions of years prior to agriculture. But once agriculture created the temporary food supplies, it gave humans a false sense of food security and encouraged them to have more babies than the land could support long term. And we've seen that happening, have we not? Now, like a colony of yeast injected with sugar, we have multiplied exponentially, consumed most of the bioavailable nutrients in the world, and we are headed for colony collapse. The question is, are we smarter than yeast? Probably. But most of us will be blindsided by how quickly our population doubles from nearly 7.5 billion to 15 billion. About 60 years at current growth rates. That is because most of us don't understand the concept of exponential growth. Exponential growth. Who's talked about that? Lots of scientists like Dr. Guy McPherson. He's talked about it. So after we're blindsided, and he says about 60 years, and we don't understand, from the article, quote, imagine a petri dish with enough nutrients to support a growing bacteria culture until the dish is completely full of them. One bacterium is placed inside the dish at 11 a.m. and the population of bacteria doubles every minute, such that the petri dish will become full by noon. At what point will the petri dish be half full of bacteria? Most people reply incorrectly that the petri dish will be half full at 11:30 a.m. because we are more familiar with linear rather than exponential rates of growth. The correct answer is 11:59 a.m., which seems rather unintuitive, doesn't it? However, because the rate of growth is exponential, doubling every minute, the time at which the petri dish is half full is at 11:59 a.m. With just one more doubling in the next minute, the petri dish is completely full at noon. The greatest shortcoming of the human race is our inability to understand the exponential function, said Professor Albert Bartlett in his Paramount video lecture called Arithmetic, Population, and Energy. So that's the article. I thought it was fascinating. And of course, there are a few comments, which I thought we would maybe go over a couple of them. Lemsip says, why don't you move to such a crowded space then? Try Hong Kong. You know, how about this? Steve says, no, I don't think so. Aren't humans also just living wild creatures of the earth? What motivates people like you to place living wild creatures above those creatures known as Homo sapiens? We are all animals, aren't we? It's thinking like this that leads Greenpeace to disregard one's animal, human life, to save another. Yet where is Greenpeace when the bear fishes the salmon from the stream? Where is Greenpeace when the lion takes down the gazelle? Interesting questions. It really makes you think, though, doesn't it? And this is pretty much like a part one of this, because I don't have the answers. I just thought it was fascinating. It's been on my mind. It's ever since, and I told you when it was on my mind. There's another article that there was a little piece here about the ecological footprint. It's the only metric that measures how much nature we have and how much nature we use. And this footprint helps countries and local leaders and individuals. And there's a website for that I'll put up, because I will do that. I'm going to put up some of these things. And it talks about, energy, settlement, timber and paper, food and fiber and seafood. Well, now I'm done with reading. We're just going to have a little discussion. Does anybody have anything that they want to talk about? I don't have a huge audience tonight because it is Friday night and it's after 10. But I really did think it was a worthwhile article to read and go over. And sometimes people like to have things read to them so they can sit back and digest it. I am by no means a person saying to people what to do. And actually I lied. I lied, because there was another article this week, and I definitely want to go into this one really quickly before we stop, before I end. I don't know if you guys saw on our page the article that I found in Motherboard this week. That's right. This one was called Stop Telling People Not to Have Kids to Save the Planet. And the author, Kate Linnell, she says she's terrified of climate change, but she became a parent anyway. And she's a science journalist and editor, and she spends most of her days thinking about climate change. And she thinks about the rapidly heating planet and a melting Arctic and species loss, political action and public apathy. And then she goes home and takes care of her daughter, who is 2 years old. So she goes through, it's a pretty good article, and she goes through some things, and she says the global population is projected to reach 11.2 billion by the year 2100, up from 7.6 billion today. So there are urgent questions about how we'll feed, clothe, house, and provide the medical care for so many people in the face of climate change and its occupying threats, including sea level rise, ocean acidification, and desertification. There's a lot of stuff here. Well, her article is pretty good, but, she says how many resources a baby consumes has to do with where and how she and the family live. In Western countries, where individuals tend to have a larger carbon footprint, the fertility rate is already falling quite a bit. We are having fewer children. Like, my daughter says that she's not going to have any kids at 28. But I'm not going to read this whole article, but I will talk about the fact that she does write about Donald Trump, that he caught a lot of flack leaving Paris. And it is interesting to me because here's another little caveat about this whole thing. The government of the United States wants to stop funding overseas help to countries that need population curtailment help. Like, just birth control. Help these people. But really what I see is it's education. It's not, we don't want to send over wholesale abortions or anything like that. It's educating people in other countries. And the United States has a really good opportunity to help people do that. But that's going to go away. And another interesting tidbit about Texas. The state of Texas, in its defunding of Planned Parenthood, I believe, has found statistically that since they are not putting money into education and Planned Parenthood or birth control, that the number of abortions has gone up. I need more information on that, but it actually has gone up. So that's something that is really interesting. So you stop the education, you stop birth control access for young people, and what happens? They're finding places to get abortions. And that's not what we intended, is it? I don't think so. Well, anyway, let's see if we have any questions. We've been on for 35 minutes, and it's actually been a very quiet night. And here I said, and I said I wasn't going to do that. But it's quiet. Very quiet. Rochelle is here. Well, then I'm going to talk about what I think about the end of this. I do not think that talking about overpopulation should be a taboo subject. I do think that it's something that we need to continue to discuss, but not in a way that it instills fear, like the gentleman that wrote to me about, eugenics and the early turn of the century. Completely nothing I would ever preach. As they call it, what? The Paul Ryan, focus of philosophy. Oh my gosh. Patrick's here with us. Patrick says, it's religious preaching, the go forth and multiply bit that drives population growth in those countries. Well, Patrick, I do agree with you, because fundamentalists in many religions do talk about go forth and multiply, have kids. And I did read articles where in Pakistan, for instance, there are several men that were quoted in an article, which I would have to find. This is just by memory. And each one of those fathers had many wives, and each one of those wives had multiple children, to where these guys had like 35 children apiece. How is that sustainable? I do not want to put down any religion, and I won't. I'm not going to put down religion. That's a personal thought for me. I just think it's kind of strange that it's okay, that these people think it's okay to go forth and just multiply, multiply. And that's where the education is lacking. And that's where these countries need help. And do any of us like to see starving children in sub-Saharan Africa? Oh my God, no. Who wants to see this? But that's a whole other thing that goes into sociology and psychology of the patriarchal societies that these people live in, and the fact that, the men kind of rule the roost and the women just have to go along with it. What are they going to do? And then they get pregnant. And I don't know about the education. I haven't studied it enough. But I really wanted to talk about this tonight because it's been on my mind a lot. And, I've had arguments with people about it. People say the earth is fine and we can continue unabated. We can just keep going. People all over the world can just keep going. Okay, that's fine. Then we see the videos all over the world of starving children. And then there's war and Syria and the Middle East, where people are clamoring to get out with their 5, 6, 8, 9, 10 kids that they can't feed. It is heartbreaking to see that. It is. It really is. I personally don't want to see the discussion about overpopulation stop. And I don't want people to say, oh, that the overpopulation is, it's an elitist type of the elites are pushing that, and that it's really because, all right, basically it's really bullshit. What does Patrick say? Patrick, you say, the problem is men rule. Truer words have never been spoken. Now, I know this. I read it. And it really struck me when I read the article about those Pakistani men that had, 35 kids and thought there's nothing wrong with it, and that their God is going to provide. But it's so obvious that it's not happening like that, is it? No. Mm-mm. But I don't really want to bring this into a whole religious talk either, because I have respect for everybody's beliefs for what they believe. What I believe is different from a lot of what other people believe. I am not a person that follows any particular religion. And I grew up with an atheist father. And so I didn't get to do a lot of things that other kids did. I remember when I was in school, kids were going to Sunday school. They were going to Sunday school and they were going to church, and we didn't have that. We didn't even have a Christmas tree. I mean, I remember growing up when I grew up in Northern California, and these kids would have all this stuff, and I felt pretty bad because I didn't have a Christmas tree, and we didn't have that. So there are a little bit of painful memories, but they're what made me into who I am. And I don't resent my father one bit at all. My father had his beliefs for whatever reasons, and they did actually trickle down to all three of his children, my two brothers and myself. But that's me. This is about you. You come to Environmental Coffee House, and everything we talk about is about you and getting things out of you, discussion. And I don't have a lot of people that have comments tonight, and I'm surprised. Unless it's because it's Friday night and people are out partying and it's the summer, and, I'm home hurting and I won't even show you my foot. I had ice on it all day. I cannot believe that I fell down the basement steps. But anyway, I thought the article was worth reading. And I hope that those of you that have joined us tonight will understand that and feel that it was worth your time to listen to, and will share this, because I do think it was. And we have Michael that shared. Michael shared. Hi, Michael. Michael shared, all solutions are local and solar on every roof. Well, Michael, you know that's pretty much what I say all the time. Local, local, local. No matter where we are going, no matter what happens with abrupt climate change, you can't give up, because we don't know the exact time. We don't know the exact science. You can't give up. You work locally, where you live in your own backyard, to make sure that at least where you live is clean and green. And the next big thing politically in the United States is getting rid of the right-wing climate-denying people, congressmen. Get them out. I said that in my last live stream. And what is coffee in every cup? Patrick, you're cool. Coffee in every cup. Well, I suppose you've listened to me talk long enough, and you might want to go and do something with somebody you love tonight, on a Friday night. There will be more, though. This is not the last discussion that I'm going to have on this, because it's a discussion, quite frankly, it just fascinates me. And it isn't the first one either. I'm not going to spout negativity, and I'm not going to spout, scream and shout that, people should stop having kids and all of that stuff. I don't want to do that. I want conversation started. And I hope that by sharing this tonight, that the people that do choose to listen to what I've read will have conversation spurred. I do. I'd like to see if anybody else has anything that they want to say besides coffee in every cup. Oh, Trevor's with us. Hi, Trevor. Trevor's somebody that I really want to interview. Trevor's a very interesting person from Canada, and he's got some ideas. And look for Trevor. I'm not ready to divulge and talk about everything that Trevor's going to talk about with us yet, but he will be coming on with us. Cynthia, she says, hello, I was raised in a Lutheran, and I've been saying tonight too much. Maybe it's the muscle relaxer. I don't know. Hello, I was raised in a Lutheran household. My beliefs are humans write books and humans make mistakes. Oh, I don't follow the Bible by the letter. Okay, but you do understand, the Bible, and you do understand that it's a decision that you make, that you follow or you don't follow, or you question. I've always been one to say question. Question everything, question authority, question everything. And Michael says, maize was given to pale-face invaders from the Native Americans, and we use it to fuel our cars while people starve. Wow. That's a pretty heavy-duty statement, Michael. I wouldn't disagree with what we've done in the United States anyway. What we've done to the indigenous people here. We're fighting all over our state. And we have water protectors that are going into camps like the Mahwah, New Jersey camp. And it's a Sweet Rock Prayer Camp, doing amazing work. I love these young people. I absolutely love them, like Chelsea. And if I pronounce her name right, Miigwech, I hope, who's going to come on with us. She's been staying in New Jersey. These people are the salt of the earth. They are the most amazing young people that I've come across even through my career at the university. I think the water protectors and the kids, young adults, going to the different camps are amazing. They have what it takes in the heart to make things right. They have a future. We don't want their future to be robbed by the oligarchs of the baby boomer age. Absolutely, we don't. And I don't want to say abrupt climate change is going to make it too late. It's very easy. I could. I read all the data and I read all the material. And of course, after this last week with all of the articles that finally, like New York Magazine, that made it into the mainstream media. Wow, what a week. Wow, what a week. And don't forget about the Wolves Den in Flint. They are great kids. Absolutely. That's where my Chelsea Lyons Kent is. And, everybody knows when I've met and I've come across all of these wonderful people that I adopt them. Chelsea's one of my daughters and Miigwech is one of my daughters. And please, if I'm pronouncing it wrong, she's got to forgive me because I just have problems with retention with this brain of names and names that are not easily Understood. Oh my God. Here is Joanne. Hi, Joanne. She's in from Tucson late again. Joanne and I have actually gotten some kind of through the internet waves connection. And I really look forward to talking with Joanne more. I think that Joanne is a person that I'm going to learn from. Hi, Joanne, and I'm so glad you came into my life. In fact, I am so happy that I've had this wonderful opportunity for so many people to come into my life through this. And the YouTube channel is even bringing more people in. The YouTube channel, and I have to thank Hambone Littletail, because from being on Hambone's channel, I have made friends. And I've made a couple of girlfriends, Deanna Deemers and Fiesta Cranberry. And these girls, women, are very special to me. They really are. Now, I haven't adopted them as daughters because we're the same age. But I feel spiritually blessed that they came into my life and that I've started relationships with them. And Deanna is absolutely amazing. She writes me the most beautiful letters about the osprey, and she watches the birds. Beautiful person, beautiful individual. If you get a chance and you watch the YouTube videos, please read Deanna's comments on my stuff. She's just a beautiful, caring, wonderful person. And again, I feel that I was given a gift with her and Mark and Fiesta, all through Humpty Dumpty tribe. Now, Michael says mankind has tried to continue their gene pool into the future and has called envy and fear of others different than the group. That's really an interesting one. Anybody want to take a stab at that one? And Joanne, Mother Nature always wins. Well, perhaps Mother Nature really is going to kick us off. And if Mother Nature does kick us off, we do, as Guy McPherson says, love always wins. It's what we do with that love on a daily basis. And that's why I'm here. I'm here to bring education and to reach one and teach one. And I'm here to spread the love. You know, I've talked about the things like the 5 stages of grief. When we realize how serious we are in a situation that could lead us down a path that none of us want to even think about. You know, in fact, I've been thinking about my own attitude towards the stuff I read. And I've been questioning my own feelings of perhaps, as awake as I think I am, maybe I am actually in denial. And maybe I'm living day to day, doing what I'm doing, but also for some reason thinking that maybe it's really not going to happen. That might be subconscious in me. Scientifically, I know. You know, I know. Oh, Dawn. Dawn loved the show earlier today when the activists Pramila Malik and James Cromwell, the actor, they were in Minnesink, New York, protesting a hideous fracked gas plant that was built in New York State with a lot of backdoor deals by our Governor Cuomo, while he has made fracking banned in our state. We are sucking the hell out of Pennsylvania to bring it to our state. And a lot of these pipelines are going to be interconnected. And in fact, those interconnected pipelines are going to sell a lot of that frack gas overseas. That's not fair. Not that we want it. What we want is an opportunity to be able to purchase and live with the things that we want in our green movement. We want to use a rototiller, for example, on the garden that's battery powered. Or even, like my Amish neighbors, horse powered. When I go by and I watch what they do in their gardens, they use horses and they work very hard. Not that my husband doesn't. He is a hard worker and he has done a magnificent job, and he does, in taking care of us. But he takes care of us in a way that is controversial to some. He hunts and we eat venison. And again, I told you, I don't purchase food anymore from the supermarket, groceries, factory farm meat. He may, but I don't. I have found the places that I buy my stuff from, and my eggs and all that. And so, it makes me feel better for whatever that's worth. It makes me feel better. Am I deluding myself? I don't know. We're even looking at going farther off the grid at a cabin up in the woods, surrounded by property of my husband's friend. But I don't know physically if I could do it with my disabilities, which I opened by telling you about. Cynthia says, yes, horses are wonderful beings if they're protected and treated and respected. Well, I will tell you, I watch my neighbors, and for the most part, I have to say where I am in Western New York, that the horses are beautiful, and I don't see abuse. If I saw abuse, I would be right on it. And I donated today to a worldwide organization. I'll have to put the link up. That, again, I said, I'm gonna ask you to give me a pass on the because of my medicine. But this organization is taking care of horses and mules, work animals worldwide. Really, 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 really cool, I thought. So I donated. Humans, Michael says, are naturally social, and corporations want to monetize and control for predictable returns to investors. Of course. What doesn't the oligarchy want to do that's not got their greedy little dirty hands in it? But that's for another day. So I'm going to look and I say, we've been on an hour. And what happens when you share is that a lot of people do not have an hour to take to watch. But I thought it was worthwhile. So I hope you all like the new light. Now that you can see me, actually. I thought it was important. And I do have one more, actually, that I'm going to end with. I'm going to end with a comment that John Ellis made on one of our stories that had to do with this week's hullabaloo in the media, and the progressive media specifically, on abrupt climate change and what's coming down the pike. So I'm going to take it away, John. Uphill Media on YouTube. Fabulous. I love them. In fact, they've asked me to do a climate show once a week, and I am working on it. It's in the hopper. I have to say I'm a little nervous because when you work on your own, it's a little bit different than having to follow a protocol, but they are wonderful. So I'm going to end with this. Stories of hope are good. Action is better. Doomsday is being preached because the majority of America still thinks climate change isn't or will not affect them. It's killing people right now. But let's make sure we only tell stories of hope. Okay? I disagree with only pushing a positive narrative. How about reality? There's hope. But shit is fucked up and people are dying. Species are dying. But we should calm down and be positive? Huh. Let's not pamper the truth so we feel better. Unbelievable that we are still more concerned about our feelings than the reality of climate change or the future of our species. I liked it, John. I liked it. I like you. I like Uphill Media. And I feel really honored that they have asked me to do the climate show. So we'll end with Cynthia saying aho. Thank you, Cynthia. And everybody have the most wonderful rest of your evening wherever you are. Thank you for being with me, Sandy Shallis. And come back. Unless there's any other really pressing questions that you have out there, I don't see them. So this is more of a reflective stream. Reflect on the article I read and think about these things. And perhaps maybe even write your own articles. We haven't started a webpage yet for Environmental Coffee House where we can have authors and writers. It would be great. I would love to see that in the future, one day at a time. So everybody, thank you for coming. Good night. I really, really, really love all of you. I may not know you, but I feel an inherent love inside me. And you're here with me. And you're taking this journey with me. So thank you. Mwah. Good night. Peace. Until we meet again. My friends.